Today, we're gonna check out this really awesome product. It's actually a back scratcher. Not really, it's actually a 5-in-1 automotive rescue tool, but maybe 6-in-1 if you count the back scratching. Hey everyone, it's David Wallman, and today I'm out here reviewing this SpareMe 5-in-1 rescue tool, is what it's called. And this is actually an older version. They're currently coming out with an 8-in-1 version on their crowdfunder, the Indiegogo or Indiegogo, or I never say it right. But either way, they sent me the 5-in-1. Yeah, full disclosure, they did send it to me, but I told them I would give my honest feedback regardless, and they were okay with that. And you know what? Overall honest feedback, quite pleased with this. So let's dig into it. So what are the 5 features that they talk about being able to use with this? Well, kind of the main one, at least I would say the main one, is the traction. So it's got all these ridges here and ridges on the bottom. Basically, if you're stuck, depending on kind of any scenario, snow, mud, sand, probably even some rock, kind of like I showed you, although it won't be as effective on rock, I can almost guarantee that, like solid, smooth rock. It's basically a traction tool. So you stick it under your tire, it gives you enough leverage and enough grip to basically drive right over it. And I've been very pleased with this aspect of it. I've only tested a few times. If you saw my video that I made of last weekend, off-roading on Cleghorn Ridge, which I'll leave a description to, or a link in the description and at the end. It was a ton of fun. The problem was we never really got stuck, my buddy and I. And so we didn't really get to test it. I've got a few shots of us trying to use it. And you know what, for what it was really effective. The only thing is it probably wouldn't work as much in the off-road scenario that we were, because we were on some Jeep trails. And so we weren't on necessarily even ground. We were, 2 or 3 tires were off the ground, which meant there wasn't enough weight on it for it to be super effective. So a few times it kicked it out from underneath. But some other times it was effective and kind of got me out of that little spot. Not that I was stuck, but that I was spinning tires, and we tried to make the most of that to get some shots. However, I came out here today, the weekend after, to try and get stuck again, and was successful in trying to get stuck. Wedged myself between a rock and in a kind of little pit. And so as you can see in this footage, I stuck it under the tire in the pit, and I was stuck for sure, and it pulled me out enough to get over that back rock, which I was moving kind of slow in the picture because I didn't want to come down hard on the rock that was on the back wheel that you can't see. But it does show, you know what, it's got traction. I think they designed it really well for the right angle of approach. I think the cleats on it, or the grippers, the spikes, whatever you want to call them, are really effective. And one of my big concerns when I first got this was going to be, well, it's plastic. Is it going to just shatter on me? Well, I can tell you it won't shatter. It is quite a hard plastic. Now I can tell you it's starting to get a little torn up on the bottom, and small bits of plastic are coming off because last weekend when we tested it, we were mostly on rock, not in sand or snow or mud. And even this was dirt, but it's really rocky dirt, as you can kind of tell. I'm in a creek bed. So will it tear it up? Yes, over time. But are you going to get a lot of uses out of it before it's ineffective? Absolutely. So pretty pleased with the actual strength of it. And with that also, one of the second aspect of this is it's a leverage point. So they hollowed out the handle so that you can stick it on the end of your spare tire changer, your wrench, and you can stand on it or leverage it, but it gives you more leverage, and that's just physics. I mean, you don't need anything crazy for that, but this is effective. And I was concerned, okay, well, is it strong enough, kind of thing? And you know what, I was standing on the end, and I mean, granted, the lug nuts weren't on there so tight that it was gonna really give a lot of opposition. It was enough to break the lug nut off just fine. And if your lug nut's still not coming off, then then it means that your mechanic put it on way too tight. But either way, so that's just logic. I wasn't really too concerned about that not working. One of the third elements is a shovel, which is just natural. If you're stuck in snow or mud or something, you kind of want to clear out some of the deep stuff that's just going to kind of keep you stuck. So being able to clear that out, it's hollow here on the bottom grid. Or you can use the top grid, but basically just something to kind of clear away some of the excess in front or behind of the tire before you stick it underneath. And so that's also logical. There's not a whole lot to test there. That's going to work just fine. The fourth thing, is use it as a leverage point for like changing out a spare tire. So since you kind of have to lift a spare tire or regular tire onto your rotors, they can be heavy for some people. I'm not used to using it, but you know what? I see their point. If you roll this on here, you can use this to lift it up enough for you to get it on there. I don't see that as a super practical means, but I see how it could be effective if someone was really struggling. But I would never like get it out of the trunk just for that. But that could just be me too. I'm used to switching tires and lifting them. But yeah, so basically using it as a leverage point on the ground to lift the tire up high enough to get onto the lug nuts. And then the fifth one is an ice scraper on the end for your windshield. Now this one I would say I have a couple complaints with, so I've only used it out here a few times, in trying to get unstuck as far as like the friction point. And because the ridge is so fine, it makes sense that it's going to get torn up pretty easily. And it's already like pretty jagged right here on the edge because it's so thin. And so I don't think it's going to be a very good ice scraper if you get it torn up too much, because you're going to have ridges and bumps, and in order for an effective ice scraper you need a pretty flat surface. So it's a good thought. I'm not sure that's the most effective. Again, I'm not where there's a lot of snow, so I can't really test that. I mean, I could, there's some dust on my windshield, but even still, like, even on the marks on the windshield, it's only really touching in a few places now. So I don't see that as being a super effective for the ice tool. Now again, I've kind of torn it up on some rock. If you live in a place where you're in snow and frost, you're probably not going to have torn it up yet, in which case it would be very effective. I mean, even if you do get stuck and use it often, you're using it in snow, maybe some ice, but most likely you're not going to tear it up like I have out here in a dry creek bed and on limestone and stuff like that. So that's my only thought on that. I don't think it would apply. Most people who live in the areas that would have frost and snow probably have nothing to be concerned about, but it's just a thought. It's going to tear up that edge, and eventually it's not going to be a very effective snow scraper. So those are the 5 points. Now, like I said, at least I think I said, this is a prototype. They're actually coming out with an 8-in-1, which includes a glass breaker, a seatbelt cutter, and a flashlight, I believe. And so they sent me the 5-in-1, so I can't really speak to that much. My only other thought on this that was kind of a bummer to me is the end cap. There is an end cap for this, for the leverage point, and we lost it on the first try. It just came right off, and I don't know if that was driving over it or what, but we lost it really easily, and ironically found it in the photos. But yeah, and so I think on the new one, the icebreaker and seatbelt cutter, and maybe even the flashlight, I'm not sure, is on the end cap, but somehow the end cap is important on the other one. And so my only concern would be losing the cap really easily. Now, you could just take the cap off before actually using it underneath your tires. That would be smart. It takes a little foresight, and you have to be thinking about that, and sometimes if you're stuck, you may not be thinking clearly about all things like that. But the cap comes off pretty quick, so just be aware you may lose the cap. Not a big deal by any means, unless it has your seatbelt cutter and glass breaker and flashlight. Which again, I'm not entirely sure which of those are on the 8-in-1, but just something to keep in mind. So all in all, here's my thoughts, and I was going to give my honest feedback on this. I like it. So comparatively speaking, you can buy the big sleds, the big traction boards basically for like off-roading and sand stuff, and they're really expensive. Like, they're a few hundred, and these are like 30 to 40 bucks, I think. I'm not positive on the price because they may change, but Like, you could get 6 of these for the price of the sleds, and they do the same thing. Essentially, I mean, they're not quite as long, but they're gonna get you unstuck in most scenarios. So my kind of thought on this is for the price and the size, why would you not have one of these in the back of your car? Or 2. You know, if you're a front wheel drive or rear wheel drive, then you could just get 2 and you could have one under each tire. That could be even more effective. For me, with all-wheel drive, or if you have 4-wheel drive, why not get 4? All in all, I would say the SpareMe 5-in-1 rescue tool, I'm pretty excited about. I think, again, for the price and size, why not? Why not? It's effective enough, as you just saw in the video. Like, it got me unstuck in a scenario where I was pretty legitimately stuck. I think I probably could have eventually rocked my way out of it, but maybe not without slamming my bumper on that big rock or something. And so being able to stick this under the tire and pull out slowly, it's pretty handy. So why not have one? So we know that it works. We know it can be used for the leverage and for the shovel. So again, just why not? I am pleased with the plastic overall. It will eventually wear down if you're really grinding it on a lot of hard surfaces, but snow, mud, sand, you're not. And everything else is logical. So all in all, check it out. I'll try and put a link below of their campaign, their crowdfund campaign, or where you can find out more about it. That may change, that link may change in a few months when the campaign ends or something. So just search for the SpareMe 5-in-1 rescue tool or SpareMe 8-in-1 rescue tool in Google, and you should be able to find more about them if the link below is no longer active. But all in all, super pleased with it. I'd say check it out. I'd say get one if you're in any scenario where you ever might get stuck in any of those scenarios. Again, for 30 to 40 bucks, why not have one? For 60 to 70, why not have 2? So with that, I hope this was helpful. If you have any comments or questions, as always, drop them below. You know I'm pretty good about answering people on my channel. And so if you have questions about it, let me know. Otherwise, check them out on their pages. They can probably give you more detail than I can, but I'd be happy to answer some of your questions. And again, thanks for stopping by. I hope this was helpful. Subscribe, and I'll see you next time.